I am a doctor, but I'm a doctor of veterinary medicine.
Well, that's okay.
I am the leader or the head of the House of Aaron.
Okay.
And we actually use the title Chief High Priest, not Bishop. We've had 3 of them. I'm the 3rd. My dad was the 2nd. The first one, Maurice Glendenning, did go by the title Bishop.
Glendenning. Oh, that's a familiar name to me.
Yeah.
My listeners might not know that name, but I know that name, so that's good. Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett. The House of Aaron is a group of Messianic Christians. What are their worship services like? What about their church structure? We'll find out more about how large this group is with Dr. John Conrad. He's the Chief High Priest of the House of Aaron. Check out our conversation. Do you have any temples or anything like that? Or
One of the things, in fact, we were doing that today, where you came in and we were concluding, we have a setup. I don't know if you noticed, we have the menorah, the altar, where we walk through the items that were in the temple, which to us are all pictures of the work of Yeshua, the work of Jesus. Mm-hmm. When you look at the laver, he says that he is the Word made flesh, and we're washed by the water of the Word. He is the perfect sacrifice. He's the light of the world, the menorah. I mean, when you look at every single thing in the temple, it's a picture of the redemptive work of the Messiah. And so we have a service, and we are going to build a building. That's what we were talking about when you came.
Right, yeah, I could tell.
That will have what we call the sanctuary part, where we walk through these pictures, you know, the altar of sacrifice, the laver, the menorah, the altar of incense, the table of the bread of the presence. All of these are pictures of the work of the Messiah and leading us into the presence of God. So we are in the process of building. We don't like to call it a temple. Maybe a sanctuary might be a better way to describe it.
Okay, so it wouldn't be like an LDS endowment or anything?
No, and I don't know as much about
okay.
the LDS temples. I know just a little because, of course, it's kept somewhat secret, but I think it would be somewhat different.
Okay. So it would be open to the public, probably?
Yes, it would be. Though, if a person wanted to walk through it, it wouldn't require affiliation with the House of Aaron, but it would be very difficult to walk through that if you did not believe in Yeshua, if you didn't believe in Jesus as the Messiah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a little bit like, and I think the LDS have closed communion. Our communion is open.
Oh, that's interesting.
To anyone that's above the age of 8 and baptized.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
so you baptize at 8 as well?
Yes.
What percent of people are former LDS versus
well,
never
at this point, not too many, because the former LDS, a lot of them have died off.
Okay.
I mean, that there were some people there today. There are a couple of brothers and their wives, and the one couple's 89 and 90, and the other one's 87 and 85. But I mean, and this lady here, where we borrowed the key to get in here, she's 86 or 7. I mean,
she's not 86, really?
Well, no, not Teresa. She borrowed it from her mother.
Okay. I was like, no. She did not look 86.
No. She's 67 or something. Anyway, what I'm saying is that most of the people my age, and I'm 70, were never LDS.
Okay. So, but it sounds like you still have a pretty good knowledge of LDS teachings.
We do, and I may more than others because I'm involved in a lot of this kind of thing.
Okay.
Talking with people, and it's just like people like Casey Griffiths come out and they have questions, and my dad was also very big in fellowship discussions, talking with people. We've been quite willing to go wherever we're asked. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I've even taught in some places in the remnant back in Independence. And it's interesting, some people are very open to it and others are terrified.
I'm familiar with that.
You're letting in and so I'm sensitive to that, because I think you never want to, when you think about it, religious belief and religious faith, to the extent it's ever forced, it destroys it.
Right.
It has to be, and God makes it very clear, and I think this is very big with the LDS too, it's choice. Mm-hmm. If there's one thing God has given you, He's not taking. That's your choice. He's not going to make you. I mean, that's a story that you have that maybe everyone else doesn't have, but we really all believe it.
Right.
Because without choice, the cross doesn't make any sense. Atonement doesn't make any sense. Why not just save us all?
You mentioned the cross. I'm glad you mentioned that. I noticed also you have a very distinctive cross that has like 3 crosses on the cross.
Yes, and that comes, our founder, Dr. Glendenning, Maurice Glendenning, Scottish. He went to Scotland and found his, I'm going to forget, what do you call it?
Coat of arms or something?
Yeah, your coat of arms, your heraldry.
Mm-hmm.
And on that was this cross that has
the 3 crosses.
has the 3 crosses, and we love it. We call it a patriarchal cross. And I think we're the only ones in the world that call it that. There's probably another name for it in the British Isles. But we love it because it has 3 main branches, which is, Israel was divided up into 3 main families, Judah, Levi, and Joseph. But then on each of those, there's 3 more, so it gives you 12.
Oh, I see.
It gives you, it's like a picture of Israel. And so we've kept that in our imagery.
Yeah. So I know the LDS almost have an aversion to the cross.
Yeah, I see, and I didn't know that. I was never LDS enough to know. My dad told me later that, he was on a mission in Brazil, but he said, there's kind of an aversion to the blood and to the cross.
Yeah.
And of course, they never have crosses on their buildings, which we use the cross in our sanctuary ceremony, but we don't put it on our buildings usually. But, it's one of those things that we're not bothered if people have it, and we're not really bothered if they don't.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the cross is a symbol of laying your life down and taking up God's life. And this is very real for everybody. I mean, you think about it, there's no better picture of a husband being a good husband than that he lays his life down for his family. And if he doesn't, he's probably not being a great husband. Not that we all do it all the time.
Worship services, is it just pretty much like a typical sacrament meeting? Have you been to an LDS sacrament meeting? Are you familiar?
Years ago, and I have, it's been a while, we meet every Saturday.
On Saturday.
Yeah, and we get together at 9:30. And our other branches are pretty similar, 9:30 or 10. And generally what we'll do is we sing. We worship, we sing songs. We're very committed to music because of the Levitical thing. We have a lot of musicians. We have people that have written a lot of songs. In fact, our little high school has had a lot of awards for our choir. We are very focused on music. And that was one of the traits of Levi. They were the musicians. So we sing probably a half an hour. Then usually our pastor, or what we call a branch priest, which is, probably not that dissimilar from what you do. Anyway, he'll get up and share something or have some activity, and then we'll break up into what we call classes. The adults, and right now we don't have a lot of kids, so we've only got 1 or 2. We have a couple of kids classes, and we'll have an hour Bible study lesson, something. And I usually have been the one who teaches the adults. We need to get somebody else. They've heard enough of me. And then we'll come back and we'll have communion or sacrament service.
Okay.
So we usually start at 9:30 and we're done like 12:15.
Oh, about 3 hours. That's the way we used to be. We're down to 2 hours now.
Yeah, see, that includes an intermission, but
Right.
it's not 3 hours, but it's over 2.5. So,
Well, cool. So it doesn't sound like you have like a quorum of 12 apostles or anything. It's just kind of a branch president, or I guess you call it a high priest?
For the house of Aaron, we actually do have something called a Supreme Council.
Okay.
Which is a chairman, who is a fellow named David Sterling, and 9 members. Right now there are only 7. And they conduct the affairs of the whole organization. That would be all 3 branches and people, that are affiliated with us that aren't in a branch. Then we have something called the Interceding Council, which deals with the branches. What are the needs of the congregation? Do they need a copy machine? Do they need materials for the kids' Sabbath school class? That kind of thing. That's our Interceding Council, which just basically means a council who deals with the needs of the individual branches. And then, like here in the community, we have a council who deliberates on community affairs. And the other councils are all men. This council is both men and women in the community. And we also have something called the community meeting, which a lot of our bigger discussions, tougher issues, are dealt with there, which every community member. And it's legally, the council could contravene what the community meeting has deliberated and decided, but it never happens. If the community meeting, we've talked something through as a community and say, this is where we'd like to go, the council is going to say, yep, that's what the community wants to do, unless there's some overbearing reason.
Okay.
And that right now is our government, because like I say, we're fairly small.
Yeah.
In fact, we have a lot of government for the number of people we have.
Okay, interesting. As far as priesthood, I don't know if you're familiar with LDS concept of Melchizedek Aaronic. Are you just
quite
Aaronic,
familiar
or?
with it? We see it a little differently. We're more, we talk about Aaronic priesthood. We do have some discussions in Melchizedek, and I've had some rather long discussions with former President Larson, Arlo Stevenson, others. But when we call somebody a priest, it means they've been called to the Aaronic priesthood.
Mm-hmm.
The Melchizedek priesthood we see as something, I guess it's not completely dissimilar to you, but it's something that is not lineage related. It's related to a position with Yeshua, with Jesus, like the connection there, because it is actually a priesthood from Jesus.
Okay. So, are you the leader of the congregation here?
Not really.
Okay.
I'm the leader of the house of Aaron, but a fellow named Greg Faber is what we would call our branch priest or branch pastor or whatever word you want to use.
Okay. So you're, because I believe, did you say that you were a high priest? Is that right?
In the organization, my title is chief high priest, Dave is first high priest, and we have a fellow named Gerald who's second high priest.
Okay. And then you would have priests that would baptize? Or?
Yes, and you to serve communion sacrament, you need to be a priest. To do a marriage, to baptize, very similar to other groups.
And do you have any other officers like deacons or teachers or anything like that, elders?
At the present, no.
Okay.
I mean, people will serve, we could really say, in those, but as small as we are, you're going to end up serving in several of those capacities.
Are there any female priests?
No.
No. So it would just...
No, and it isn't that we do not limit women doing anything but being a priest.
Okay, so they can't be priests.
Cannot be priests.
So they can't marry people, they can't baptize, can't pass sacrament. Okay.
No, it's, well, I mean, as far as pass it, we wouldn't care.
Or bless it.
The blessing, in fact, the way we do communion, we have a whole wafer and real wine. And part of the instructions in the Levitical writings is that you're to pass it, of course, it is adjudicated, it is blessed by the priest. But then in the congregation, it's to be passed to one another. It's to be passed with the right hand as a picture of I'm offering my strength to my brother or sister. It's to be partaken of with the left hand in admitting that I need. My left hand is a picture of my need of you and my connection. And so that's something we just try to remind people in the house of Aaron. It will be passed with your right hand and partaken of with your left hand. And so if possible, we actually like people to serve each other as a picture of the body, coming together. That's what sacrament is. It's a vertical covenant with the Lord through Jesus and a horizontal covenant with one another.
Okay.
And but so people pass it to each other, but you're right. It's the priests who administer it.
Okay. Well, is there anything we've missed?
I'm sure there is.
What else should we know about the house of Aaron?
I don't know. That's a great question. My point is we do believe God is and will restore Israel. We believe, we're very strongly supportive of the nation of Israel. Doesn't mean we believe in everything they do politically. We believe they have a right to exist. And we believe the fate of the church, of the believers of Jesus Christ, is very tied to what goes on in the land of Israel. And just as the Bible talks about Joseph Ephraim being one of the houses, Judah is another house, and most people miss the fact that it says in Jeremiah 31 and quoted in Hebrews that the new covenant is not made with the Gentiles. It's made with the house of Judah and the house of Israel. Which I'm not taking it away from other Christians. I'm just saying, if you're in the new covenant, then you've admitted you're one of these houses.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are very important things to us. Things that bring us together. And to try to portray to people, there's probably error in everyone. There's probably error in every group, and maybe some more than others. But a lot of the difference is not error. A lot of the difference is part of the body. And as a medically trained person, I try to point out to people, when you look at your fingernails, it's hard, it's unfeeling, and yet it does its job perfectly. But if you lift up the fingernail, underneath it is an area of the body that probably has the most sensory nerve cells per millimeter anywhere in the body, extremely sensitive. You have these exact opposites right together. Why? Because it gives us this tactile sensation so we can feel and touch and yet not be destroyed every time something, hits our fingers. And we don't have a problem with that. But in the body of the Messiah, if we get close to somebody and we're the exact opposite, we assume they're an error. Sometimes it's a difference in function. And that's a message that we would like to bring more to people. Find out it's like to me, why are we fighting the LDS on their beliefs in Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon and the Doctrine and Covenants when there are so many things where they believe like we do and we could work together to make the world a better place?
I wish more Christians were like that.
Me too. I think it's so senseless that we fight one another.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
The best way to get me to see it the way you do is to join hands and work together.
Right.
And then I'm going to find out, I judged Rick this way and I was wrong.
Right.
But if I build this wall and we can never come together, then I'm never going to be changed, and it keeps me safe. I can stay in my little igloo of perfection.
Right. Right. Well, that's fantastic. Well, John Conrad, anything else you want to share before I let you go? Appreciate it.
No, I mean, I'm sure there's a million more things, but I hope this was helpful and illuminating.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Well, thank you so much for being here on Gospel Tangents. Really appreciate it.
Well, it was a delight to be with you, and hopefully we can cross our paths again.
All right. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Dr. John Conrad. John, thank you so much for sitting down with me and letting me eat part of the Feast of the Tabernacles with you. That was really fun. So it's really fun to learn about your group and appreciate your hospitality. In our next conversation, I'd like to introduce attorney Mark Tensmeyer. There are a surprising number of LDS people who are embracing the old RLDS position that Joseph Smith was a monogamist. A lot of times they like to throw out older recollections as, quote, hearsay evidence. What exactly is that?
So in the law, there's the hearsay evidence about how anything that was said outside of a courtroom setting is hearsay. But that applies to all oral communications. So since Joseph Smith is dead, everything he ever said or did pretty much is based on hearsay. So even Joseph Smith's denials that he was polygamist is based on hearsay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hearsay.
Important point there. If you'd like to hear the entire interview uncut, please subscribe to patreon.com/gospeltangents for just $5 a month. Patreon is spelled patreon.com/gospeltangents. If you'd like to watch the entire video, you can subscribe at YouTube, Patreon, or on my website at gospeltangents.com and click the yellow subscribe button for just $8 a month. PDF transcripts are just $10 a month, and you can get those on patreon.com/gospeltangents or on my website. I'll send those to you as soon as I've finished completing it. If you'd like to get a paperback and PDF, just subscribe for $20 a month at either Patreon or on my website. Individual paperbacks are available at Amazon.com. Just do a search for Gospel Tangents interview, and you can find all of our past interviews there. Show your Gospel Tangents pride by purchasing a t-shirt on our website at gospeltangents.com/shop. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts at tinyurl.com/gospeltangents. You can get our latest updates by friending me at Facebook, or you can also follow our page at facebook.com/gospeltangents. Become an insider and you can see the newest videos. Follow us on Twitter at GospelTangents. Click here to subscribe, here for a transcript, and over here we've got some of our great videos. Thanks again.